Okay, what's going on, everybody? We are here. We're live. I want to thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, well, if you can see and hear me clearly, please drop a one in the live chat, and then we can get things started. We'll get this show started when we get some ones in the live chat to let me know that you can see and hear me clearly. And while I'm waiting for the ones to come into the live chat, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button because that is the most important thing you can do for me on this channel. What it does is that helps to make sure that those who are subscribed to the channel will indeed get their notifications, and it also helps to push this video through the YouTube algorithm. Secondly, if you're new to the channel, or maybe you've been ghost watching this channel for quite some time now, please do me a favor and yourself a favor and hit the subscribe button as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. And lastly, please make sure to share this video out on your social media platforms to your family and friends to let them know about this news and information. And yes, that also does give me a slight boost in YouTube algorithm as well. And lastly, and I promise we're going to get the show started after this, follow me on Telegram. The link to my Telegram is in the description box below. It will be pinned in the comment section once the stream is over. And hopefully I remember to pin it in the live chat, but I don't think that I did. But make sure you follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. And now that the ones are coming into the chat, let's get today's show started. Every poll that is out there concerning Joe Biden and how he's doing amongst Black voters, Hispanic voters, young voters, all of his polling numbers are in the dumpster. They're in the dumpster. Really, really bad. Even when it comes down to, let me pull this up on the screen right now. Even when it comes down to the swing states, which Joe Biden needs in order to beat Trump, Trump is mopping the floor with Biden in the swing states, right? Now, recently, yesterday, that is, Joe Biden was in Philadelphia. He was in Philadelphia, which is a swing state or a battleground state. And according to the polls, I believe this is a New York Times poll, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is. Biden or Trump is up in Philadelphia by 3 points. So it's definitely doable for Biden to be able to catch up to Trump because Trump is only up by 3 points in Philadelphia. But there's no way he's going to do it without the black vote. Biden literally at this point can win without the black vote. And that's why he was in Philadelphia yesterday, to get the black vote. And he rented out a gymnasium, you can say, his team, in order to hold a rally in the gymnasium. And they invited Black Philadelphia to show up. They said, come one, come all, to support Biden and Harris and to help us get the rest of Black Philadelphia all riled up and energized for this election and to vote Biden Harris 2024. And what happened was one of the most pathetic things that I've ever seen in my life. Truly pathetic. And it speaks volumes to Biden's campaign and the fact that he stands no chance in winning. Nobody showed up. The gymnasium was empty. Look at this. Let's go over a few pictures right now. This is awful. Oh, man. Black Philadelphia did not show up for Joe Biden at all. Let me zoom in just a little bit. And you know what? Let me go ahead and take myself off the screen temporarily. Nobody showed up for Biden. Biden is desperate for that black vote. And literally nobody showed up. The gymnasium was empty. It looks like it's at least a quarter, if not less than that, full. It's just pathetic. It's pathetic. And then the Biden and the DNC should be ashamed of themselves. Let's go through some other photos right here. Look at this. Oh my God, this is horrible. This is pathetic. And look at how they have to take photos at angles in order to make it look like it was packed. You see, you have to get up real close. Now, when you stand all the way to the back, nobody's in there because nobody is voting for Joe Biden this election, especially not black folks. Seemingly this time around, they're not going to vote for him. It doesn't look like it. They have to get up real close. And even when they get up close, look at this. There's still no one there. Even when you get in close, there's still no one here in the gymnasium. And as you can see, this was Black voters for Biden and Harris. That's what this event was. And Black folks didn't show up. They didn't show up. Look at this photo over here. You can see this is where the press is, and all behind them is empty. It's completely empty. Nobody showed up for Biden. Now, you know where folks did show up to? Trump had that Chick-fil-A packed in Atlanta, didn't he? That Chick-fil-A in Atlanta was packed with Black folks to see Trump, wasn't it? It was packed. Trump had the Chick-fil-A packed. I think there were more Black people in that Chick-fil-A in Atlanta to see Donald Trump than there were in this extra empty gymnasium in Philadelphia to see Joe Biden. Oh man, Chick-fil-A was jumping. It was jumping. Oh man, it was jumping. But let me reel it in a little bit. I know some of you watching, the vote blue no matter who is, God bless your heart and your soul. I know some of you will say concerning, that Chick-fil-A stint, the Chick-fil-A incident that, it was pre-planned and whatnot. It was pre-planned. And that's why it was so packed with people. It's not like Trump showed up on the spot and Black folks just came through to show him love. And here's where I got you. Here's where I got you on all that. Because the reality is this: when you're talking about the president of the United States and former president Donald Trump, and they're not moving around willy-nilly, just popping up on people and popping up at places unannounced, right? Everything is pre-planned. Everything is pre-planned. And that's what makes Joe Biden in Philadelphia and the lack of Black support there that much more pathetic, because this event was pre-planned. Everyone knew Joe Biden was going to be there. They knew Kamala Harris was going to be there. And they still didn't show up. That's what makes this even worse. This was planned. The memo went out. Biden and Harris is coming to town. Come meet Biden and Harris, and let's get behind them, Black America and Black Philadelphia, to galvanize Black people across America, as well as in Philadelphia, to get them to get behind Biden and Harris 2024. And that was the turnout. After weeks of planning, what you're seeing on your screen was the turnout. Truly pathetic. It is truly pathetic. Once again, I don't see in any way, shape, form, or fashion Biden having any true path to victory. Once again, as I always say, without that 2020 magic. Without that 2020 magic. That's literally the only way that he can win. All polls show that he doesn't stand a chance. Wherever he goes in order to meet with Black folks who he desperately needs in order to save his campaign, they don't show up. I wish I had the photo available right now. I don't think I still have it queued up from the past live stream, but how many of you all remember when Joe Biden went down to, I believe it was South Carolina, and he went to some historic Black church? I don't remember what the name of that church is called, but it was one of those long names like the Presbyterian Methodist of Christ, African church, some church that has been around since like the 1800s, right? It's a Black church. How many of you all remembered when we looked at the photos of Biden in that Black church in South Carolina? It was packed with white Americans in a Black church in South Carolina, a historically Black church that has Africa in the name of the church. And it was only white Americans in that church that came to see Biden. Biden couldn't even fill up a Black church with old Black people who are the most loyal of his constituents concerning Black people. He couldn't even fill up a Black church for Black folks to come see him in South Carolina. They had to pack it out with white liberals. It was white liberals that filled it up. So once again, if some way, somehow, this man Biden manages to win, we all know what's up, man. We all know what's up. We all know what's up. There's literally just no way. There's no way outside of the 2020 magic. Outside of 2020 magic, what is 2020 magic? 2020 magic, as I've stated over and over again, it's when you go to sleep thinking one guy won because he's far and way ahead in the lead, and there seemingly is no path to victory for the other man to win when you went to bed. But when you woke up in the morning, the other man won by a long shot. He just, boom, he just won. You woke up and the guy who was way in the back all of a sudden won. That's that 2020 magic. Don't go to sleep this election. November 5th, I believe it is, 2024, don't go to bed. Going to bed is that's when they're going to get you. If you go to sleep this November during the election, when you wake up, they're going to pull the wool over your eyes again, and Biden's going to mess around and he won the election. I think we're going to have to pull an all-nighter this November, and we're going to have to stay up the entire election in order to keep an eye on what's really going on, right? Because that's literally the only way that Biden can win. He has no support from anybody. I have a pre-recorded video that I'm going to upload tomorrow discussing how down bad he is with the young voters. Young voters have all but abandoned Joe Biden. He literally has no support. But now that we got all the ha-ha-has and he-he-he's out of the way, I do want to address a few things concerning what Biden had to say. Biden and Harris did speak in this empty gymnasium. You know, they both spoke here, right? And I want to get into a few things that Biden said. I could take time and just rip apart the entire 30-minute, speech in the empty gymnasium with no black people in there. But there's no reason to do that. I really just want to touch on like the key things that Biden stated and that he talked about in this empty gymnasium. I want to focus in on that and just, explain some of those things, bring some clarity to what Biden is actually saying. So let's jump into it right now. There are 572 of you in the stream. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. That's extremely important to the growth of this channel. And let's get into it.
This guy. No,
Rewind it back just a little bit. He starts off saying something snapped in this guy, right? Something snapped in Donald Trump after he lost the 2020 election. This is what he's getting at when he says something snapped in this guy. He just kind of jumps straight into it. Okay, so let's get into it.
Really snapped in this guy. No, I'm serious. That's why January 6th happened, when he unleashed an insurrection. Now he's running again, and he's clearly unhinged. He calls insurrectionists who stormed the Capitol patriots. Patriots. If reelected, he wants to pardon, quote, every one of them. Let me ask you, what do you think he would have done on January 6th if black Americans had stormed it? Think about this. What do you think would have happened if black Americans had stormed the Capitol? I don't think he'd be talking about pardons.
Oh, he's pandering heavy. Biden is pandering heavy. He said, "What do you think what do you think would happen if black people had stormed the Capitol on J6? What do you think would happen? Do you think that Trump would pardon all those black folks?" That's what he's getting at, because he's hinting and alluding to the idea that Trump is racist, but he isn't, right? I'm actually one who is more of the belief that Trump actually would have pardoned them. He would have, because there's historical precedent to that, right? What do I mean? I know for some of you might be scratching your head right now, like, huh? You really think that, CD? Yeah. And there is some history behind it. Now, why do I say that? Well, let's get into it. I want to pull up an article for you very quickly. I want to pull this article up for you here. And I want to discuss what seemingly is turning out to be Donald Trump's history of pardoning and releasing from jail, we'll put air quotes around it, criminals, right? Pardoning criminals, because J6ers were criminals. Let's get into this here. Excuse me. The First Step Act promised widespread reform. What has the criminal justice overhaul achieved so far? Let's get into this, because this is what, Trump signed into law. He could have vetoed this if he wanted to. He could have vetoed it, but he didn't. He signed it into law when it came across his desk. And now let's get into and see the impact of this, and let's weigh that and compare it to Joe Biden's history, right? As it pertains to locking people up and pardoning folks and things of that nature. Let's get into that. The article reads, and I'll just get into the highlighted points. In 2004, when Tanisha Bannister was 29, a judge sentenced her to life in prison for selling crack, convicting the single mother of two. She'd never be free again. She was sentenced to jail for life for selling crack. For selling crack. Listen, drug dealing is bad. Drug dealing is wrong, right? For lack of better words, or I should say, to say the least. I have a cousin who, I won't say his name. He was hooked really bad, not on crack. I'm not really sure what he was on, honestly. But he was on drugs really, really bad when I was in high school. He's about 3 years older than me. He was on it so bad that his parents actually had to put him out the house, because he was stealing from his parents. He was stealing from his sisters, selling their stuff to go, get high and whatnot. It was really, really bad. Luckily, he overcame his addiction, and he's been sober now for well over a decade. So thank God to that. But I say that to say this, I know what it's like kind of being on the other side of that situation, when you have family members that are like hooked on drugs bad. I remember one time, giving him some money because I didn't want him to go out and do other things to get it. You know what I mean? So it's really bad, So I understand what it's like to be on the other side of that when you have a family member who's hooked. Give me just a moment. You all know, if you're a regular to this channel, you know why I'm walking away right now. If you're a regular to this channel, you know why I had to step away. Sometimes I interrupt my live streams with foolishness. Give me just a second. Okay. I'm not even going to say what I just did, but if you're a regular to this channel, you all know why I had to step away from this for just a moment. But the point is this, let's reel it back in. Long story short, my cousin was hooked pretty bad. He's been sober for well over 10 years now. He's doing really good. You can't say, my point is this, you really can't say that selling drugs is a victimless crime. A lot of times it's categorized as a victimless crime. You can't really say that, because when you're selling drugs or you're selling crack, you're selling to someone who's hooked on drugs, and they're a victim, and you're providing them with the fix that's destroying them. So it's not really a victimless crime. But with that being said, you definitely don't deserve life in prison when you get caught. Not life in jail. Maybe a couple years, but not life. Why did she get life, though? Why did Tanisha, the mother of two, who I'm assuming was struggling, thought that maybe selling crack was the way, to get up on some money, and ended up doing life? Why such a harsh sentence? Joe Biden is the reason for that harsh of a sentence. Over time, the 1986 law mandating a 100-to-1 crack versus powder cocaine sentencing ratio marooned millions of Americans, mostly Black men, in American prisons. Who authored that bill? Who authored that bill, which was strategically designed specifically for the purposes of putting black men in jail who either sold crack and or were addicted to crack. Joe Biden was. Joe Biden was. How an early Biden crime bill created sentencing disparities for crack and cocaine trafficking. Now, I'm not going to go into this article right now because many of us know this history already. We all know this history already. Biden is the one who authored this racist bill. He's the one who put this woman in jail for life simply for selling crack. Now, let's get back into this article and read what the outcome was of all this and the impact of the First Step Act, though, right? But as time in prison stretched on, Bannister, who is black, began to question the legitimacy of her harsh punishment for a non-violent crime. Then in May, she became one of more than 4,500 people released or who have seen their prison terms shortened since December 2018, when Trump signed into law one of the most significant changes to the federal criminal justice system in the 21st century. Mind you, this article comes from NBC. This is NBC who wrote this. NBC, you might as well switch those letters out and call them DNC, okay? This is NBC DNC who wrote this, and even NBC DNC had to give it up and stated that this is one of the most significant changes to the federal criminal justice system in the 21st century. Under this bill that was signed into law by Trump, this woman who went to jail under Biden's law was freed. And a lot of black men and women were freed and given a second chance at life under this bill that was signed into law by Trump. Has Biden signed any transformative bill even close to this nature that you can look at and say that it had a significant impact on the black community? No. What you can do, on the other hand, though, is agree that he has signed bills that have had significant impacts on the black community, just on the negative side, as it pertains to the 86 crack laws that was specifically designed to put black men in jail. It was literally tailored for that purpose. So when Biden asked the question, well, do you think if the J6ers were black, he would pardon them? Well, history showed that Trump pardoned all the folks that you put in jail. All the black people you put in jail, Biden. For the most part, Trump pardoned them and you didn't. And funny enough, under your administration and DNC rule, just like how you put a bunch of black folks in jail under a bogus crack law, under your rule, you put a bunch of J6ers in jail. And as history is repeating itself to some degree, if Trump gets into office, he's going to release them too. So it looks like Trump actually has a history of releasing criminals from jail. Criminals who found themselves placed in jail behind who? Joe Biden. Either directly or indirectly. Whether it was a bill that he signed or whether it was under his, DOJ, Department of Justice, concerning January 6ers. History shows Biden locks people up and Trump releases them from jail. This is not me being a fanboy. People get upset when you point stuff like this out. Oh, you love Donald Trump. Oh, you love Trump. Oh, you're such a fan. History is history. We're just going based off history. Don't get mad at me because history doesn't reflect well on the favor of Biden. That's not my fault. I can't help it that Biden is an anti-black racist. I can't help it. It is what it is. Now, if you want to make an argument that Trump is a racist, you can make that argument if you want to, but you're not going to make that argument and pretend like Biden isn't one either. And I'm definitely not going to let Biden make that argument as he was trying to make in an empty gymnasium filled with no black people who were supposed to show up, but didn't show up because they know he's full of crap. So now let's carry on. I don't think I have anything else left here to read. Let's get back into the actual video that we were watching earlier, okay? And there are 735 of you in the stream right now. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. That would be deeply appreciated. And thank you very much to the first person who contributed to today's stream. I appreciate you so much. I can tell I already can't read your username, but I'm going to try. You all know I struggle sometimes with the reading, especially when it comes to names. I think the name is Minnesota County Unsolved Crime Channel. Oh, you're promoting your YouTube channel, huh? Okay. I see you trying to come up off my live stream, huh? You're trying to get subscribers off this 755 people watching this stream, huh? Okay, I see you, Minnesota County Unsolved Crime Channel. Man, go over there to Minnesota County Unsolved Crime Channel. You know what I'm saying? I see you. I see what you're doing there. All right, I ain't mad at it. He said Kamala Macho Man Harris neck has a lot of veins. Kamala Macho Man Harris neck has a lot of veins. Yeah, her neck does have a lot of veins, her neck does have a lot of veins. And I appreciate you, Minnesota, for contributing to today's stream, being the first person to contribute. Thank you very much. I literally do not exist without everyone's support. So thank you very much, Minnesota. Your contribution to today's stream does not go unrecognized. I truly do appreciate it. Thank you. Now, let's get back into the BS of Biden, right? Because he said a couple of more things that I just want to kind of rip apart and dismantle.
Same guy wanted to tear gas you as you peacefully protested George Floyd's murder.
Let's listen to that again. He's talking nonsense.
It's the same guy who wanted to tear gas you as you peacefully protested George Floyd's murder.
When did Donald Trump say he wanted to tear gas black people? I missed that. I mean, he was in office for, 4 years. The last year of his presidency, the whole George Floyd thing popped off in 2020. I don't ever recall hearing Trump ever saying he wanted to tear gas black people. Let me know in the live chat. Have you ever heard that? Have you ever heard Donald Trump said, man, I wish I could tear gas the blacks, over there protesting George Floyd. I want to tear gas the blacks badly. I don't think I've ever heard him say anything of that nature before.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
I've heard Joe Biden say that. I've heard Joe Biden talk about how we're going to get put back in chains, if a Republican takes office again.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
They're going to bring back chattel slavery. We're all getting put back in chains.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
They're going to sell us off to the highest bidder. Apparently. I've heard that before, but I've never heard Donald Trump say, I wish I could tear gas the blacks. I've never heard that one before. That's a new one. Sounds like nonsense. It sounds like you're lying to me, Joe Biden. It sounds like you're lying. Shout out to Adrian Hicks. I appreciate you. He said, here's some drink money. I appreciate you. I'm going to go out and get a Celsius after this stream because you held me down with a little drink money. I appreciate you, Adrian Hicks. Thank you so much. And also, thank you, Jet Black, for contributing to today's stream. Jet Black said, good to know the details of this setup. I appreciate you. Thank you very much, Jet Black. And it is good to know the details of this setup. It's good to know the details of the foolishness of Joe Biden. I appreciate you and all of you who have contributed to today's stream. Thank you very much. Now let's get back into the foolishness of Joe Biden because apparently Donald Trump wanted to gas the blacks,
The same guy who still calls the Central Park Five guilty, even though they were exonerated. He's that landlord who denies housing applications because of the color of your skin. He's that guy who won't say Black Lives Matter and invokes neo-Nazi Third Reich terms. We all remember Trump is
Okay. I'll give Biden all that. I'm not going to argue with Biden against whatever he's saying right now. He's that guy that won't rent, apartment buildings out to black people. He's that guy who still are calling the Central Park Five guilty, I guess, apparently. But Biden, you're also still that guy, who opposed busing and said that, busing the blacks to white schools is going to turn those white areas into a racial jungle. Even Kamala Harris got on you about that during the Democratic debates, the DNC debates between the presidential candidates in 2020. Now, I don't have that video queued up. That's a video that you can watch on your own because I really don't want to listen to Kamala Harris speak. It's hard to listen to her speak. I just can't do it. I can't listen to Kamala Harris talk. But I do want to pull this up right now, concerning Biden saying this. Biden did say that, it's going to turn into a racial jungle if the blacks come into the schools over here. Oh my God, monkeys everywhere. Apparently, that's Joe Biden. And I want to pull that up. Here's right here is a fact check, and a lot of times when you pull up these fact checks, they're a little questionable at times, but I think this fact check got it right. This fact check got it right. We're going to get into some direct quotes with Joe Biden concerning him saying if you bring the blacks into the white neighborhood with busing, you're going to turn into a racial jungle. Monkeys everywhere, swinging from trees if you bust the blacks over here. I mean, that's Biden for you. It's Biden talk. So fact check. An alleged Biden quote claims he once said he didn't want his kids growing up in a racial jungle. Here are the facts. U.S. President Joe Biden once said he didn't want his kids to grow up in a racial jungle in regards to desegregation, rating, correct attribution. For years, claims have spread that U.S. President Joe Biden expressed fear in 1977 that desegregation, if not done in an orderly way, could result in his children growing up in a racial jungle with tensions having built so high that it is going to explode at some point. That is a direct quote from Joe Biden. He said, and I quote, a racial jungle with tensions having built so high that it is going to explode at some point. The quote is accurate as reported. In 2020, we contacted Biden's presidential campaign for comment, but did not receive a response in time for publication. Didn't get a response in time. We reached out to the White House in 2024. So they keep reaching out to Biden concerning this. They say, hey, Biden, we want to talk to you about this racial jungle talk. Let's talk about it. We reached out to the White House in 2024 to again see if we could get a comment. And we'll update the fact check when we hear back. But of course, they never heard back. Right? Biden made the remark in 1977 when he was a U.S. Senator representing Delaware. He was voicing the views of busing as part of a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing about the subject. Unless we do something about this, and this is Biden talking, unless we do something about this, my children are going to grow up in a jungle with all the blacks. The jungle being a racial jungle with tensions having built so high that it is going to explode at some point. We have got to make some move on this. It's going to be a jungle if you let the blacks in. Later during the same hearing, Biden discussed the potential legacy of his actions. I repeat, later during the same hearing, Biden discussed the potential legacy of his actions. We will have to judge 5 years from now whether or not Joe Biden was, as one of the other witnesses said, a George Wallace, or similar to George Wallace, or Joe Biden is a racist. I'm going to read that one more time. We will have to judge 5 years from now whether or not Joe Biden was, as one of the other witnesses said, a George Wallace, or similar to George Wallace, or Joe Biden is a racist. I have to stand on that, and I will be judged on that later. That was Joe Biden who said that. For those of you who don't know who George Wallace is, George Wallace was a hardcore anti-black racist, segregationist in the 1960s. And Biden stood on his principles so strong concerning, if you allow this busing thing to happen all willy-nilly and you let the blacks come into my children's school, it's going to turn it into a jungle, right? He stood on that so tall and so strong that he was even willing to compare himself to George Wallace. He says, we'll see 5 years from now whether or not I'm a George Wallace, or whether or not I'm similar to George Wallace, or whether or not I'm just Joe Biden the racist. This is what he said. He compared himself to George Wallace. That's him who did that. That's Biden who did that. Do your Googles on George Wallace. You can watch it. Go on YouTube and just type in George Wallace and see what comes up. Type George Wallace civil rights movement, civil rights, George Wallace 1960, and see what comes up. See how George Wallace is talked about. Listen to George Wallace speak himself. There's plenty of video and audio of George Wallace speaking about black people. Listen to George Wallace discuss black people, and you be the judge of who he's comparing himself to and why he would compare himself to somebody like that. He sees himself in the same light as a George Wallace. This was 1977, I believe, right? Was this 1977? Yeah, it's 1977. Not that far removed from the civil rights movement. He sees, George Wallace as, one of his counterparts, one of his fellow men, one of the good old boys. We'll see in 5 years from now if I'm George Wallace, similar to George Wallace, or just simply a good old-fashioned racist by the name of Joe Biden. In 1975, Biden attacked, get this. In 1975, Biden attached an anti-busing provision to an education spending bill. His advocacy made it safe for other Democrats to oppose busing, according to the Times. He did not want black folks coming to his children's school. The Times also reported that Biden sided with Jesse Helms, the segregationist senator from North Carolina, that year when Helms sought to prevent the federal government from withholding funding from school districts that did not integrate. This man, Jesse Helms, let's take a moment to pause. The federal government was attempting to do the right thing, right? They said, we're going to withhold money from these schools who are refusing to integrate. Jesse Helms said, no, we need to give them the money anyways, integration or not. Even if they're resisting, give them the money. Joe Biden sided with Jesse Helms and said, yes, give them the money. The same man then is the same man who's running for office now. That is the same Joe Biden, the same racist, anti-black Joe Biden. I could go on and on about Joe Biden's deep anti-black racist history. I could go on forever about it. This could easily be a 2-hour-long show if I wanted to detail and chronicle that. But I really don't need to. This really says all that needs to be said concerning Joe Biden and how he feels about the black community. And what's funny is that I went through all that and I didn't even realize that this wasn't on your screen. Oh, that makes me so upset. If you've been subscribed to this channel for any length of period of time, you know how upset I am about that right now. I'm really mad that the entire time you were sitting there looking at Joe Biden frozen on the screen and not what I was reading. Oh, here we go. The whole live stream is ruined. Terrence Jackson unsubscribed. Oh, everybody's about to unsubscribe. This was a good stream and I ruined it. I ruined it. I ruined it. Oh my goodness. But anyways, as usual, so you know that I'm not making all this stuff up. Once the stream ends, I will leave the link to everything that I just read that appeared on your screen, but didn't appear on your screen because I forgot to put it on the screen. All the links to everything that I just read will be in the description box below. It'll be in the description box below so that you can read it for yourself, right? And you know that I'm not capping. You know that I'm not lying. I didn't make this stuff up. It's all true. And this is a good note really to reel it all in on, right? Because like I said, I honestly could go on and on. There is a little bit more to this 2-minute clip that I could play, but at this point it's really just beating a dead horse, right? The projection is crazy. The very person that Biden is pointing the finger at and saying Trump is actually who he is. It's actually who Biden is. And he's always been that and has a long, extensive, well-documented history of being that. But we're going to pretend like that's not true. Or maybe we're not going to pretend like it's not true any longer. Because, as we see from the polling, it appears that Black folks don't want anything to do with him. And they definitely don't want anything to do with him in Philadelphia. They definitely don't want anything to do with him over there. And we see how true that is by this empty gymnasium that he apparently spoke to Black people to. He spoke to all 150 of them in a gymnasium that easily could have occupied, we'll say about 2,000, maybe 3,000 people. 2,000, maybe 2,500 people. Could have occupied that many people. Only about 150 people showed up, So once again, it speaks volumes. It speaks volumes to Biden, who he actually is. And it looks like maybe, hopefully, to some degree, Black folks are waking up to him. I don't know. That's yet to be seen. It's yet to be seen. We'll have to see what happens this November. We've seen the polls that have showed and stated that Biden, that Trump is going to get about, 20% of the Black vote. As I've stated multiple times over, I got to see it to believe it. I don't know. We all know voting blue, no matter who, for Black folks is a religion. So we'll see. But by the looks of it, things do look a little promising, especially looking at this empty gymnasium that was supposed to be filled with Black people in Philadelphia who didn't show up. And with all that being said, that does it for today's stream. I want to take a moment to thank those of you who contributed to today's show, because there were a few of you who did jump back in with contributions that I didn't get a chance to get to. There are 913 of you in the stream right now. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell notification next to the subscribe button. And let's get into this, the last couple of contributions to today's show. Minnesota said, Umar Johnson's School for Black Boys will be open before Joe Biden does something for Black people. I think you're right. Because you're right. I have to agree with you there. Umar Johnson's, the School for Black Children, for Black Boys, those 2 trap bandos that he has in Wilmington, Delaware. I think he'll have those trap bandos open as a school for Black boys before Joe Biden does anything for Black people. I'd have to agree with you on that, Minnesota. Shout out to Sharon Advance Your Life. Am I saying that right? Sharon? We'll go with Sharon. Sharon Advanced Your Life. Free thinking people see through the mess. Bye, Brandon. First time contributing. Love your broadcast. I appreciate you. I appreciate you loving the broadcast, even though the entire time I didn't have the article up on the screen that I was reading. I know you guys don't care, you guys, because the viewership didn't drop down at all. But as the content creator, you have to understand how much that is killing me inside. It is eating me up alive that I did not have that article up on the screen the entire time that I was reading. It is burning me up. Andrew Hicks, I appreciate you. Andrew Hicks stated that this a down payment for your security detail. I appreciate that. You telling too much truth. You're gonna need protection. Hey man, it gets real out here. And you see how Biden is getting down. You see how the DNC is getting down. See how they're getting down. They're doing all type of weird stuff with jury selection, and the judge is talking about, instead of out of 12 people on the jury pool, out of 12 people, we don't need a unanimous guilty verdict. We only need 4 of you. If only 4 of you think he's guilty, then he's guilty. You see how these folks are getting down. So I might need some security details. So thank you very much, Adrian Hicks, for putting a little something down on my security detail. And thank you very much, DC. I can't read some of the most basic stuff. DC prices. I appreciate you, DC. DC said, great stream, bro. Sitting in my black chair, wearing black socks, watching my black TV, eating a black steak, drinking black coffee, petting my black dog. Shout out to Brandon Johnson. If you don't know where that joke is coming from, all black everything. Brandon Johnson, the Emperor of Chicago. I should say the Emperor of the People's Republic of Chicago. Apparently he can't do anything because his wife is black. He's struggling with his black wife and his black children on the west side of Chicago. And he's having a hard time being the mayor of Chicago. I should say the emperor of Chicago, apparently because his wife is black. His words, not mine. Those are his words, not mine. So once again, with all that being said, I want to thank you all for joining me today. Please hit that like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video out on your social media platforms. And also don't forget to follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. Follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. The link to my Telegram is in the description box below. It'll be pinned in the comment section once the stream is over. Thank you all for your time. And until the next stream, peace and have a great evening.